want to make sure my vote counted.
A 94-year-old Michigan woman traveled nearly 300 miles to make sure her vote was cast in the upcoming election. Mildred Madison has been caring for her sister just outside Chicago and was going to vote absentee, but her ballot for the August primary in Michigan was late, and she didn't want to take any chances for the general election. She tells WJBK her son and daughter drove her to the Detroit City Clerk's office to hand in her ballot.
I wasn't going to miss this at all. It was most important, no matter what I had to do.
My mother was an elected official, so she understands the importance from both sides.
Vote because your life depends on it. And this year, it truly depends on that you vote. And it's not only for you, but for your children and their children.
Mildred says she was a city council member when she lived in Cleveland and sat on the State Board of Education. She's also been president of the League of Women Voters in Cleveland and in Detroit. Katie Johnston for CBS Chicago.
Black women have always been on the front lines for social justice.
It's what we do.
We organize, make phone calls,
And yes,
we run for office.
all while being fly.
We stand up
To systemic racism
fight for health care
and justice for all our citizens, and use our power, our right, our responsibility.
Black women.
Let's vote. Vote.
For Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Your turn, fellas.
Okay, we got this.
Fellas, brothers,
We've heard our sisters,
our mothers, our wives and daughters cry out for equality.
equality all across this country. And now it's our turn.
Our responsibility
To take our power back.
Black women vote more than black men.
And it's time we change that.
Don't give your power away.
Every single vote counts in this election.
Show up
Show out.
And vote
for Joe Biden
and Kamala Harris.
Happy Monday to each of you, and this is our show, Perspective. We are at episode number 16, and tonight, Cara McClure just posted this, one of our guests, in the chat, and I think it's an awesome idea. So we know our topic tonight is a two-part series, The Power of Your Voice, Part 1, but we're going to call this, and if you share this, we're going to call this a pre-voting party. So we're just going to have fun tonight and have great discussion because we are actually 8 days into the November election. We've been talking about this since August, and here we are a week and a day away. So without further delay, let's get our guest in here so we could get the conversation started. Good evening to all of our guests. Glad to have all of you. And if you're in Birmingham, you've seen one or more of all of these people, so they really don't need much of an introduction. But I am going to tell you something about them. Let's start with the lovely lady on the bottom. If you lived in Birmingham over 10 years and you don't know who she is, shame, shame, shame. For many of us, she was Miss Fox 6 on your side herself. Showing us things of solutions, things in the community. Anchor that I've been fortunate to know for a number of years. And currently, she is the owner of her own public relations firm for Main Communications. That's none other than Miss Ronda Robinson-McKenzie.
Hello.
Hey. And then back at the top, and this is our first time officially meeting Cara and I. It's like we've known each other all the time. She's acting like she's shy, but she is not. Cara is what I would call a female bulldog, and we're gonna tell y'all why later on. Not gonna give a lot out of introduction. But, currently, she's the executive director of the Faith and Work statewide, and where she's a civil engagement collective. Welcome to Cara. And then next to her, we have Eric Hall. Eric has done, when I say he gets the job done, and doesn't mind letting his voice be heard. He served as neighborhood president of Pratt City. The city council meeting, you seen him down there getting into what we call good trouble. Please keep doing that, sir, by all means. But currently, he is the co-chairperson for Birmingham's local chapter of Our Revolution. Welcome to you, Eric. And then last but certainly not least, we have Brandon McCray. Brandon has worked faithfully for former county, currently County Commissioner Sheila Tyson, and he worked for her when she was on the city council, and he's worked for Crystal Smitherman, and currently he's the casting director for All the Way Entertainment. Welcome to you, Brandon. So as you all can see, we have some very great guests in. And when we talk about voting, I wanted to get the best. So this is a two-part series. So this is our panel tonight. Again, welcome to each of you. So let's get this conversation started.
Let's go then.
I'm ready.
Let's just go.
Let's do it. So, as the caption that I have on the screen says, we are 8 days away from the November 3rd election. And before we even get into the conversation, I'm going to mention again at the end, I have got to give a shout out to the great people of Jefferson County. Y'all listen, with these two, and I know they've been doing the absentee in-person voting during the weeks. For these past 2 Saturdays, you all have shown out in record numbers. For those of you who got on early, you had a chance to see during the video. Those were actual pictures from this Saturday. I think over 1,500 voters, and it rained. People were with umbrellas, ponchos, but they were determined not to leave. So shout out to all of you that have done early voting. I did it today. We'll be talking about that before the show ends, but wanted to make sure we open with that. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So my first question, and the way we'll do it for most topics, there will be some start with others first, but for each topic, we'll start with Ronda, then we'll go to Cara, and we'll go to Brandon, and then we'll end with Eric. That's how we'll do it for most of our questions.
Can we just whoever want to answers, and whoever don't.
Sure.
I love how you put me on the hot seat first.
You can't expect to recruit bulldogs to your show and then expect us to act right.
That's the word. The bulldog on my show, so I'm the chief bulldog. But let's get into it. My first question would be for years now, and this whole thing started for African Americans with the Voting Rights Act, which was signed by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965. And I can remember as a kid going with my grandparents voting, even with my parents when I was younger. It was like a big thing for them. It was a pleasure and an honor. I remember my grandmothers, especially, and their friends, they wore their Sundays best because they knew there were times when they couldn't vote. So my first question to you all, in your opinion, do we still look at it with that same dignity and grace? And depending on your answer, why or why not would you say the reason for your answer?
So since you put me on the hot seat first, I'm going to say I think it depends on the age of the voter, because I think the older generation still views it as something special and they are still loyal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my generation, some of us vote and some of us don't.
Mm-hmm.
And with the millennials, the younger generation, they have to be motivated by something or they just don't seem to care.
Yeah.
I think we almost have to be traumatized to the polls, because I've never seen so much outreach. And I know the outreach is because of the weight and the urgency of the moment, but also it's actually taking all of this to get everyone motivated and excited and to understand what's happening right now. I don't care what it takes, but what I do want us to do is keep up the same energy, like figure out a way to keep this going.
Yeah.
Because the next couple of years, we got to keep this same energy up because everything is at stake, especially in 2022
Yeah.
with the statewide races. So we cannot slow down after November 3rd. So whatever is taken to motivate, we got to keep this energy up.
Yeah. And then, it's a lot of people, throughout the years I've run across, the young folk would be like, oh, I vote presidential. Like that's the only thing for you to vote for, when what's hitting you close to home is your local, your county election. And those have the smallest turnout of everything. So you living in a district that's represented, well, a district that may have 17,000 registered voters, but only 3,000 get to determine who your representative is. And that's just a big problem. And like Cara said, going into next year, I mean, we have a city election next year. So we got to find a way to keep this energy up.
I hate to disrupt Mr. McCray, but I'm going to have to correct him on something. My name is Cara.
I said Cara. I meant Cara. I'm sorry. I do that every time too.
But I turn it over to Eric next.
Yeah.
So y'all pretty much said everything. I think the older generation are the more, I'll call them the elders, and those who are seasoned and wise. They definitely believe in going to the polls and voting. And then when you think about that middle generation, of course, some do, some don't. But young folks are like, the ones I come across are really like, they feel like they're forced to pick between the lesser of two evils, especially as we talk about like this presidential election. And then also they kind of, feel like they have to fight between Democratic Party, Republican Party, and they just really want people who kind of meet them where they are. Don't necessarily really identify with any type of political party, but they more so identify with issues. And so when you think about what the future is going to look like, a lot of the younger millennials are going to be looking at issues and not necessarily having many ties to like a particular political party. And both parties have their issues, right? And so, I think that's where we are with the young folks. And unfortunately, it seems like, we got to be traumatized to get to the polls, but we got to keep this momentum going. We got to, not just when it comes to a presidential election, but we need to be doing voter registration year round, nonstop. Especially if we're going to have an impact on local elections, state elections, as well as federal elections, because we got to get folks in office that's going to be represent what we want, represent our values, represent what we need, represent our people, and policies that reflect what they need to reflect. So we got to raise up some folks and build some folks and push some folks to run for office.
Yeah. I also wanted to add, Eric, is that we have to do a better job of connecting the issues that they care about and voting. For instance, do y'all hear an echo real bad?
Justin.
For instance, I don't know what's happening. Do y'all hear it now?
If you have showing on another device, that could be it.
Okay, I'm gonna be quiet for a second.
Okay, well,
can y'all hear me?
Yeah, that's talk again.
Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
That's better.
But I can't hear y'all.
Uh-oh.
So let's go ahead on with the show while I figure this out.
Okay. We'll definitely come back to Cara to get her in. And some of the comments are actually leading into where I want to go next. My sister Monica, she posted, yep, we got to do those local races too. Yep. I can recall, and I think because I don't remember who was the mayor when I was in high school, but I think one of my first mayoral elections voting in Birmingham was when Larry Langford was running for mayor. And just to see the large turnout that we had then versus when William Bell ran, and then even when he ran for re-election, when Randall Woodfin and some others were running, the voter turnout locally has gone down. So what are some of the
Hmm.
reasons that you think the momentum for voting locally, because we are going to talk about locally, statewide, and of course the presidential race, but we want to talk about locally for a minute. What are some of the reasons that we feel that our local city council, mayor races, and school board, some of those turnouts are low?
I think it's the voters being able to connect with those running for office, and also voters doing their research and trying to figure out, what this means to me. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that I talk to, they may vote for someone, but it's more so based on a conversation they had with a family member or at the barbershop, and they may decide to vote yes on amendment 1 or 2 or whatever because of what someone told them.
Hmm.
But I think we need to do a better job of doing our own research and reading for ourselves
Yeah.
and deciding for ourselves what we want to do. And so I think somehow when the candidates are running for office, they are not connecting with these voters to the point where they want to go out
Yeah.
and vote for them in the local elections. For some reason, I
Yeah.
don't know why, but the connection, we've lost the connection somehow. People are not understanding how the local elections are really more important than the presidential election. And maybe it's the media because there's so much hype, and it's all you're talking about when you cut on CNN and some of the other news stations, all you hear about is the presidential election. Maybe it's the media hype, I don't know, but it just doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in the local elections that really impact our day-to-day living.
Yeah. Especially with local, to me, it's always kind of like a personality election. Do a lot of people know you? It's basically a big popularity contest. Sometimes that's how it comes across. And I mean, if people don't know you, they won't come out their house to vote for you. And I think if it was a way to, I don't want to say get every candidate, that make them popular just to come out, for a local election. But that's kind of like where the trend will probably need to go to turn out a big vote in local elections. So.
I think what I would add to it, Rhonda, you was definitely right. Brandon, you was right. But a major factor in local elections would be resources. And
Yeah.
also to add to that, being that I ran for city council before, um, in running for local elected positions or seats, literally we were trying to target what we call super voters, those who vote on the regular, those who we know that we can actually have access and we can see what their voting records are like, their voting patterns. And those people who run for those individuals who's running for public office literally use all of their resources, their time, effort, energy, and all of that in specifically targeting just those particular voters who they know vote in their various districts. So that could also be one of the main reasons why we're not really kind of recruiting new voters because they're targeting those who vote on a regular basis.
Agree. And then here's another question. Since we're talking about local elections, this is a conversation that I have with my parents a lot, and members of my family. In your opinion, do we feel that the younger leaders, when they are elected, that they don't want to I know the answer. Let me say that first, but I want to get your view. Do we feel that when younger leaders are elected, that they don't want to hear anything that older leaders has to say? That they try to like say, okay, well, I'm the head person in charge now. It's my show. I don't have to listen to you, regardless of if that person has been
Yeah.
in that seat for 20, 30 years. Because I'll be frankly honest, those of you who know me, regardless of what position I've held, whether it was at church, things I've done in school, things I've done with my own company. If there were older people that I knew, it could have been 5 years older, 10 years older, 15 years older, 20 years older. If I know that you have the knowledge and you're going to help me, I'm going to reach out to you. There have been several people that I have spoken with that are 70, 80 years of age, and I glean from their wisdom. So, in your opinion, do you think that's something that's missing? And if however you respond, what can we do to kind of bridge that gap? Because I know sometimes what a lot of what we hear is that the older people they unapproachable. Could that be a thing? So I want to hear what's your response?
Oh, well, what I can say about that, the younger people that get elected to an office, they got somebody they listen to. It
Mhm.
just may not be the ones who we think they should listen to.
Gotcha.
So because I've seen it over the years. They
Gotcha.
have their own little personal set of advisors that's probably away from that elected office. That pretty much coaches them and tells them, kind of the ins and outs, what to do and what not to do. So
Gotcha.
I think we need to compromise on both sides. I think the younger generation would benefit from
yeah,
listening to the older generation, but I also think the older generation could benefit from listening to the younger
yeah,
generation.
Hmm.
And I think we have to learn how to, those of us in the older generation, we got to learn how to open our eyes and realize just because it's always been done a certain way doesn't always mean that it's the best way.
yeah,
And then the younger generation they got to open their eyes and understand that we are older and wiser, and maybe we by listening to us, we can help prevent some mistakes that we know they're about to make.
Exactly.
So it really would take some compromise, but that would require all of us to be mature on both sides.
yeah. I agree.
I totally agree. Yeah, and then also, truth be told, some of those who've been in elected positions for 20, 30 years need to just go ahead and pass the baton.
Yeah,
Like, we need new leadership. We need
yeah,
someone who can carry that vision, someone who's transformative, somebody that's willing to kind of run and then go back and pass it. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to be holding those positions for 20, 30, 40 years. That's
give
some
it
of the
up.
main problems that we have with the state.
Yeah.
A lot of those people in the state house been there for 30, 40, 50 years. And you know what I'm saying? And we still dealing with, for example, the amendment that's coming up on the ballot November the 3rd, dealing with racist language in the Alabama Constitution. That should have been gone. You know what I'm saying? We black people shouldn't be identified as colors in a constitution in 2020. And that's totally unacceptable.
Yeah,
And before we continue, I'm going to ask everybody to mute their mic. We'll still go in the same order. And when Cara comes back in, we'll bring her in. But there's a lot of feedback, and I want to make sure that we're able to get all of the dialogue in. So you still can listen when your mics are muted. And those were very key points, very key. My next question that I want to go to, getting back to the presidential race. For a lot of people, young and old, believe it or not, when President Obama was elected the first time in 2008, many felt like that we were at the dream, and which we all know that was far from the truth. How could you think that um the five of us that are on tonight, what could we do to encourage those that are viewing and those that will view to realize that the work is far from over, but we've got to keep moving and we've got to keep working.
Well, you can just reflect back on this summer and know that the work is far from over.
Absolutely.
I mean, how many names do we have to give Breonna Taylor? You know, how many people have to die?
Absolutely.
I mean, we know that there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think the problem is people think that, you know, civil rights and all that was so long ago. It was not that long ago. And if we are not careful, we're going to be dialing back instead of moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Watch what I say on that one.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, and for those who are not willing to do their research, I guess the weight of it falls on us to pull aside some folks and educate them and have these conversations like we're having, so that maybe we can school some folks who got their blinders on, because we got a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, this year has been a perfect example of why we need to get out and vote. Just this year alone, and it amazes me how some people can still support an administration that has been so egregious this year, constantly lying. And I don't know, that amazes me. And so, like I said, this year alone should be the push to get everybody out to these elections on Tuesday and vote something different.
Absolutely.
I agree. It's just like, I tell people, especially when I speak to like a group of young folk, I'm so glad Lil Baby came out with the bigger picture. When he wrote those lyrics, it's bigger than black and white, can't change overnight, but we got to start somewhere. Might as well go ahead and start here. You know what I'm saying? We have to be the change that we want to see. And I encourage people, especially those who are 18 or just reaching that mark, go ahead and vote. You know what I'm saying? Make sure get your voice out there, and make sure that you are electing someone who represents you, what you stand for, what you believe in, what you want, and what you want to see. And that even goes for local elections. We have to think about like the current climate and conditions that we are living in now. And for Black people, we know where the current conditions that we are living in Black America. But when you make it more local, dealing with like how we're living in Birmingham, when you think about the how our communities have been underinvested in, how we don't have hospitals that provide adequate health care for indigent care. We don't have access to healthy foods. Only thing that we see being put up in Black communities are Family Dollars and dollar stores and other stores like that. When on the other side of town, they're getting stadiums, liquor stores, and they're getting stadiums and cultural art things and all of that. And yet, and still, we're not funding our schools adequately. So we got to think about what's going on. We got to really make sure, like, we have our eyes to the streets and ears and see what's going on, and make sure that we put the right folks in office.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My next question, and I know this is going to be it can be kind of a touchy subject, but it's true. Transparency. So we've seen probably 1% of transparency on a national level, and that should have probably been a negative one, but I will say 1%. And then for state and local level, we're starting to see less and less transparency. Let's speak to the importance of political figures, whoever you are, of maintaining transparency. That can be when you're running for school board. I'll even go before that. When you're running for PTO or PTA, transparency on all levels, because I feel like that when you run for an office elected, we as the voters, we're saying that we vote you because we agree with your platform and we believe that you are the one that can move our city or our state or our county in the best direction. And so we want you to be transparent. So kind of speak to how important that is.
It builds trust.
Mm-hmm.
It builds trust. I mean, if you're transparent about the good and the bad, not just the good, it builds trust. And that's the frustration a lot of voters have. They don't trust politicians. They feel like, okay, you'll tell me whatever I want to hear to get my vote, and then I won't hear from you again. And in some cases, that's the truth. That's exactly what happens. And I think the transparency helps build trust. It helps people feel like, okay, yes, I can count on this person when this person tells me something. It's the truth. And I think we have just gone way so far away from transparency in politics.
And we owe that, you know, to the voters, to the citizens. Like, be truthful. Let them know what's going on. You know, if you can't get this ditch cleaned out or my trash picked up, you need to tell me. You know, and it could be small stuff, but I mean, I was amazed when I first got into politics, the simple things that voters and citizens, the simplest things that they wanted. And it seemed like they had to, you know, just what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I mean, yeah, it's people seem like they have to just fuss until they can't fuss no more just to get something done. And that's just doing them a disservice. So when you say transparency, you need to mean it and you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you wasn't. They pretty much covered it. I really don't have anything else to add to that. If you are elected, if the people elect you into a seat, then you need to do what you say you're going to do. Don't just come and bring me a fish plate to earn my vote, but do more. Do more than that, right? And if you tell someone to hold you accountable, then don't discredit them, or don't say they're wrong for holding you accountable, for asking you to be more transparent in the process, because nine times out of ten, most people in public office gonna say they're gonna be transparent and they're gonna be upfront and they're gonna be honest. That's they're gonna tell you what you want to hear to get your vote. And so do that. Do the right thing. We shouldn't have to beat you up. We shouldn't have to protest and come down to City Hall and bang on the door and come at your house and sit down and harass you. You know what I'm saying? Just to make sure you're doing the right thing. You know, um, it's time that we have a equitable government, equitable, efficient, and effective government. That's what the people want. That's what people deserve. And if you say we deserve better, then some people need to show us what better looks like.
And sometimes it's just a matter of being honest and walking people through the situation. Maybe there's a reason why I called you on Monday about this abandoned house and these overgrown weeds, and it's still there on Tuesday. Walk me through it. Be transparent and say, well, ma'am, I have to contact the owner. I have to give the owner X number of days to respond. We got to go before a judge. People will understand if you just tell them. But the problem is that I think somehow that gets lost in translation. Like, we know there's a problem, but we also know no one's doing anything about it. Or if they are doing something about it, they're not telling the residents. So the residents assume nothing's being done.
Absolutely. My next question, where I want to go, and I'm going to read the quote and then I'll go into the question. This is one of my favorite quotes by Mrs. Coretta Scott King. Struggle is a never ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. And so when we think about that, and I'll leave it up for a few moments, when we think about that, in the 50s and the 60s with the bus boycott, Jim Crow laws, I'll even go back to slavery, um, unjust laws, when Alabama experienced things like the bombing at 16th Street, the Children's March, children being hosed. I'm sure never in a million years that they knew one day we would have a black president because that's what they fought for. And, to really think about that. So let's talk about doing the work. And because I'm going to be honest, none of us in our lifetime may never see another black president, but the work that we're doing, it could happen in our children's generations, our children's children's, our children's children's. So to pose the next question, I want to do it from the standpoint of how important is it that we not only do the work, but we continue to educate our children and every youth that we come in contact with to don't wait till they are aged, but start service in the community, even if it's just picking up trash, how important it is that they start that at every age, because that is a win. It may be a small win, but that's a win, and it does enhance, and society does benefit from it.
Well, I know before I started participating in my neighborhood association, I wish that was something I would have learned earlier. I didn't start really getting involved in my neighborhood until 2008. And then Eric can contest to this. I mean, I think that's probably the ground zero best place to start is your neighborhood association. So if you got one, find out your neighborhood, call City Hall. I mean, you can probably ask me or Eric now. You can pretty much tell us what street you stay on, and we more than likely can tell you what neighborhood you're in and how to get in contact with that neighborhood association. So I think that's ground level. Um, yeah, what you think, Eric?
Yeah. So I totally agree. One of the things that when I was neighborhood president, I established a relationship with the students at Jackson Hole because I wanted us to have a more um, our communities are so diverse. And it consists of young folk, old folk, disabled folk, black folk, all kind of folks make up our community. And we literally all live together. And sometimes our neighborhood association meetings were literally one way. And when I say one way, I'm meaning most of our neighborhood association meetings consisted of our elders who were probably mostly all 60 and older or 65 and older. And they believe, of course, they're pushing for public safety. They want to see more police in their neighborhoods and all of that. And our younger folks are saying, no, we don't want to see more police. We want to see more investments, but we don't want to see more police. We tired of being surveilled by police. We tired of being feeling like we're being hunted. And so there was a clear disconnect. And so what I tried to do was actually bring a balance. And if you can actually vote in your neighborhood elections at 16. And a lot of people don't know that. And so those individuals who are 16, you know, need to be kind of taught what this process is like. They need to be engaged. They need to understand what their voice is in their community. And then at the same time, we need to have projects that are center, our young folks. They need to understand how the process works. So one of the things that um, Birmingham's People's Budget Committee is doing as it relates to participatory budgeting is identifying projects by each community. What are some of the things that these communities want to see? And if you allow those young people and some of those other older folk to kind of come together, identify a project together that they can fund with city funding, of course, will be a project that's, they'll feel like they're vested in that particular project. It's a whole community effort, and it's not just focused on just one particular group or one side, but literally all voices are coming together to make something a reality in their community. And so we can start at age 16 by getting our young folk engaged in local neighborhood elections.
I totally agree. I actually take my daughter with me when I go vote She's 14 now, but she's been going with me every single time that I vote. So she's looking forward to it. On November 3rd, she's like, "Mom, I get to go with you." I was like, "Yeah," because I want her to see me. I want to lead by example, and then I want to help her understand the process. And as she has questions, talk it through with her. And then one other thing I like to do when we are out in the community and we run into different local candidates, I encourage her to have some dialogue, to talk to these people and ask them questions. Because she's 14, but she has a voice. She has questions. She has concerns. She's scared when she sees police brutality incidents on television. So I think we all should do more of that, just taking some of these young people aside and talking them through it and explaining it. And then we have a responsibility to lead by example because they watch what we do. We can tell them all day right from wrong, but if we are not walking that talk, doing what we say, then they're not going to really do it. They're going to be like, "Well, Mama, you're not voting. Why you want me to vote?"
Absolutely. And Leandria, that's so correct. It's important that children learn the process of voting. That is very important. Um, for the next 10 minutes, I want to talk on the national level. Like I said, we pretty much talk state and local, but I want to spend a few minutes on the national level. So we've talked about a lot being at stake. We do know that there's a lot at stake. Healthcare, education, COVID-19, which we're almost going into the 8th month. And the person in administration now, even though he confessed to having it, he seems to not care. And so these are the things that we as a people need to wake up to. And let me say this, there are some conversations I've been a part of where I have personally talked to two elderly African American women, and they said that they are voting for Donald Trump because they feel like he is the one who can fix the things that we're in. They've always voted Democrat, but for some reason, they are voting for Donald Trump. And so this is where Ronda was talking about earlier. It's important that not only we educate the young, but sometimes the younger generations, we have to have conversations with the older generation because it things are happening now. It really can be like, wow. And as I said on this conversation, I was like, okay, but he's talking about cutting off Medicare and your Social Security, which could affect you. So why is that a plus? So for a few moments, I really want to go back to how important it is that the dialogue continues and that we educate in the home. I know growing up, my parents, they talked to me and my sisters about politics. My grandparents talked to me about politics. And that is something that we're not seeing as much. A lot of what our kids are learning, sadly, they're learning on the streets. And a lot of what they're learning is incorrect information. And that could confuse you to the point so you don't want to have any dealings with the election process at all. So let's talk about that for a few minutes.
It's majority of the people, they look at the news, they're out every day. So they pretty much listen and believe what's being fed to them. A lot of them won't take the time to go do whatever research they need to get a particular question answered regarding whatever the situation is that's going on now. And so they depend on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, our local stations. And I got to tell you, I know the media gets knocked a lot. But I mean, they do their research. And Ms. Ronda can tell you right now, she wouldn't put nothing on the air that she didn't research, verify, and felt good about reporting. Yeah, my thing, everybody's not telling the same lie.
Mhm.
And I just hope they get some right information between now and Tuesday, but I can't tell nobody how to vote. So you know. So
Yeah,
until
you
we,
have to kind of be selective too, though, and pay attention to who you are listening to, because some journalists do research and some journalists do not. You know,
Mhm.
some journalists are more opinionated these days than true journalists who've done some research. You know, so you just have to be careful. Be mindful of where you get your information from, and don't just take the first story you see on your news feed just because it's online on Google. Doesn't make it true. Just because somebody tweets about it doesn't make it true. You know, do your own research.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I encourage people to do your research, figure out, like, find out what's true, what's not true. Don't get blindsided by what's called fake news, or misinformation, because that's the words. Those are, those key words that people are putting out there now. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's fake news, or it's misinformation, or they going out, spreading false false things. So take some time and find out what's really true. And then also lean towards, I want to say lean towards Black media. We have so many Black media outlets that's literally, you know, sharing, pouring information into our communities. And we have to listen to that. We have, really seriously take take into consideration what, these journalists are putting out there, you know. For such as Ronda, she's been feeding us for like years. Like, I grew up with like Fox 6 on your side, like, and that was so powerful, um, you know, because it gave us a voice. It kind of pushed us or showed us, like, how we can advocate for ourselves. And if we just need that extra push, then we got, Ronda Robinson with Fox 6 on your side. You know what I'm saying? And even to this day, um, years ago, and I think about it, my aunt, who's a neighborhood officer, she's literally like about 80 years old. She always get her elected officials' attention when she says she gonna put a bandana or a headscarf on her head, and she gonna get a whole whacker, and she gonna go outside, and she gonna have Fox 6 on her side, literally. What I'm saying, capturing her while she cut the grass. So we got to do our research, but most importantly, we have to advocate. We have to communicate with each other. We have to talk about the issues that's existing in our communities, and that's on a local level. That's on a national level as well, because it's really so much at stake. This election, and I won't tell people who to vote for. I never do that, but I will tell people to go out and vote. But with this election, when you see everything that's at stake, like, this administration has literally taken all of the courts, pretty much making it very hard for us to even move progressive policies forward without having a tough fight. So we have a fight ahead of us, and it's not just going to stop November the 3rd. Um, we got a long way to go, a long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to tell this joke is one that I share with Rhonda quite often. I've said this since I was a child. If Fox 6 don't say it, I don't believe it. And I'm just being honest. I have always said that. And but yeah, Fox 6 has been a long leader, and that's, I've known several people that work there and still do. They've just been that strong leader in the community. And when they put out something, they stand by it. So we do have to applaud them for that. So as we're nearing the end of our show, I want to end this way. So 2020, it has bought us a lot. Um, we as a nation, we as African Americans, of course, COVID-19, the murder of George Floyd, the murder of Breonna Taylor, and countless other African Americans who even didn't receive that same media coverage that they could have. Um, Unjust laws, we've seen a rise in the Black Lives Matter, just a lot. So, my question as we prepare to end, and I want each of you to answer in your own way, where do we go from here? And when I say from here, I even mean past Tuesday's election. Where do we go from here?
I say don't get comfortable. Because the second you get comfortable, that's when the trouble starts.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all need to stay on the edge of our seats, no matter who wins, because it doesn't stop with the November 3rd election.
Absolutely.
So I say just don't get comfortable.
Absolutely.
And use your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Use your voice. You have a voice, and your voice matters.
Absolutely.
I know that a lot of people got discouraged after 2016. But don't get discouraged to the point where you feel like your vote, your voice doesn't matter. Your voice matters. So I think that's what I would leave with everyone. Don't get comfortable. Make sure that you speak out and speak up and speak often.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And start demanding more transparency. Because I mean, it's so much that needs to be done. So we can't give up. We can't stop. Just after Tuesday, start taking more investments in your neighborhood. Try to participate more with local organizations that's doing voter registration drives. Let's get connected to all the people that's giving away or donating, free food boxes, free groceries, and stuff like that. Let's just start getting more active in our communities. And the more active we become, the higher ups will see that people are serious. And we just got to keep trucking along. So let's get more active, more active.
Definitely. We got to get more active. I had the awesome privilege of being a part of the men's movement march, which is more than a march, but it actually was the birth of a movement. And those men literally organized because they understand the importance of what we have to do, especially as Black America, to take back some of those things a lot of those things that have been stolen from us. And so if we are going to be the change, we have to understand that the change have to first start with us. We have to be the change. And then we have to encourage others, and literally together collectively, if we stand strong and stand together, then we can make a difference in our communities. If each one reach one, teach one, grab one, do whatever we got to do collectively, we can make an impact and we can make a difference and we can see the change that we need to see for our communities. So that would be my, I will leave with that. Encourage someone to advocate, to stand up, to demand more, to speak out. You ain't gonna get it till you start talking about it. May not come overnight. But eventually, if you keep talking and you keep pressing, some might shake and some might break. You might get what you want. But first, you have to start speaking up and speaking out.
And let's just educate people every time we get a chance. Educate on what's going on. What can we do to make things better? This education is the key.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I have to go here. I hate that Cara wasn't able to get back on. We'll definitely have to get her on for a future show. But I have to commend Cara and Eric. For those who don't know, they are your local leaders of Birmingham's chapter of the Black Lives Matter. And they are responsible for the beautiful painting of the Black Lives Matter painting, which is located blocks from Regents Field. So for a few moments, Eric, I want you to kind of talk about how that came to be and locally, what was the motivation and the goal behind that?
So locally, I do want to add that we actually have two Black Lives Matter murals
Okay.
in Birmingham. Miles College was the first HBCU to paint a Black Lives Matter mural on its campus, in addition to the mural that's downtown by Railroad Park. But that mural is there. Is literally it was intentionally placed um, in front of Railroad Park because of its diversity in the area, and then also because of the investment that comes in that particular area. We know a lot of white dollars come in that area, and a lot of times, oftentimes, when we think about those who hold political power, those who have influence, when we think about capitalism and all of that, they frequent that particular street. They go to Regent's Field often, or they go to those restaurants in that area. And so it's just a reminder to them and those who don't value Black lives that Black lives matter. But it's more than that. Black Lives Matter is also a rallying cry, and it's an affirmation for Black lives that Black lives are beautiful, Black lives are powerful, and Black lives matter. And so it's a constant reminder for those here in Birmingham um, that our lives matter. And so it came about. Cara was very much so responsible for the mural downtown. The same painter painted both murals, the one downtown and the one at Miles College. But it was because of relationship. They contacted the mayor, and it was literally, we're not going to wait on your approval, but we need to know where we can make this happen at. And he obliged, and he said he would like to see something like that too. But don't take it for granted. It wasn't to kind of calm folks down. You know, I want people to understand and know that no street painting wasn't calming us down. That we're fighting for policies, we're fighting for change, we're fighting for transformation in our police departments, we're fighting really yeah, we're fighting for change. We're fighting for Black lives, and we're gonna keep fighting until quality of life for Black lives here in Birmingham, Alabama, and this state, we get what we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And also, I want to add, I was there when Eric put in the groundwork to make Miles College a local voting precinct.
Mm-hmm.
That was all Eric.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody needs to know that.
Absolutely.
I was there and saw him do it firsthand.
Absolutely. So again, Eric, we definitely appreciate you for all the work you have done and all the work you continue to do. This is what we talk about when we say unsung heroes. There are many people that you would never know if their names weren't called that are doing work behind the scenes, and they don't care if it's a known act, if their names are not mentioned. They just want to see our city and our state and our counties look better and move in a positive direction. So again, kudos to you, Eric, and Brandon, to you as well for all the work that you've done and will continue to do. As we prepare to close tonight, we're going to close the video with a special video. So I hope everyone stays on to the end. But I do want to encourage everyone, don't let anyone silence you. Use your voice. And when we speak of using your voice, this goes beyond voting. There are many of you, I'm just going to put it out there. You have the leadership skills to be in leadership capacities. If you have a child in elementary or middle school or high school, that PTA or PTO needs you. Don't sit back when your voice can make a difference. Neighborhood associations, our neighborhoods need strong, effective leaders. That's a starting point. On a city level, it's not just the city council. There are several things that you could do on city levels that are elected positions to make a difference. On county levels, there are those of you, you have the giftings to be politicians. Don't sit down on your gifts. Ladies and gentlemen, we need you. Our world could benefit from the gifts that you have. So I encourage you not to sit down on that. And if you're just joining us, this will be a two-part series. So for those who may have questions after tonight, you can join us on next week, next Monday, November the 2nd. Our guest for next Monday will be Isis Jones, formerly of 98.7. Of course, she's back home in St. Louis. She'll be with us. Civil rights icon Kimberly civil rights icon Lisa McNair will be with us. We will also have, who else will we have? I just had a brain freeze that quick. We will have Michael Bell. We all know him. He's our local Cochran firm guy. He'll be with us. And then Anthony Sparks, he's a great counselor. So we are excited about next week's panel. So we hopefully hope that you would join in tonight. And as we prepare to leave, I want to make sure you are aware of the announcements as it pertains to voting, because we do want to make sure everybody is able to cast their ballot. First of all, ma'ams and please, sirs, please understand that while you can freely purchase Black Lives Matter shirts and Black Votes Matter or any shirts like that, you can be turned away at the courthouse if you do early voting. You can be turned away at your local polling place. So please adhere to those rules. If you see any notifications where it's saying that don't enter if you have that on, I would just go a step further and say don't wear it. You don't want to be turned away, or you don't want to get into unnecessary altercations because you chose to do something that could have been prevented. So you could wear that leading up to the election, other places, but please adhere to those rules, not to wearing that. There are reports of 2 people that were escorted and they were not allowed to vote on Saturday because they did have Black Votes Matter shirts on. So please adhere to the rules. And it's not to single out anyone. That's the law. And it's been that way for years, even in city elections. So please adhere to those rules. And also, we want to remind you that the last day for absentee voting in person is this Thursday from 8 to 5 p.m. You can do this at the Jefferson County Courthouse and the Bessemer Courthouse. This is if you actually want to vote in person. And the best way to get in and out, you can go online to fill out your absentee ballot. I already have it filled out and signed. And if you could have a copy of your driver's license or your state ID already, if you don't have a driver's license, that expedites your time. And then also for the absentee ballot deadlines, your request must be received by this Thursday, October the 29th, by the close of business. Now you have until this Monday, if you just complete the form and you want to take it in, that can be done by next Monday by 5 p.m.
Hey, Paul, I do want to add, while you're giving these announcements, something that's very, 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 very important.
Okay.
We have to be mindful of the games that,
Absolutely,
that's going to be played and the tricks that's going to be played. And already we're seeing how they are going to play these games, even in our own state in Alabama. And I'm talking about some of the absentee ballots that were sent to Montgomery to be counted will not be counted. And our Secretary of State had notified which ballots would not be counted, but he's literally made one news announcement or one press conference and said it's up to the individuals to contact the Board of Registrars office to check to see if your ballot was counted or not counted. And so we have to be careful because they are playing these games, and they're going to do all they can do to win this election. So if you voted or if you sent in a ballot prior to, I want to say October, call your local registrar's office to see if your ballot was counted, and make sure your ballot is counted, because they are already playing games as it relates to our votes, and absentee ballots.
Absolutely. And to add to that, because I did just sit on the news this evening, I think he said the date. If you did anything before October the 14th, he would make you have a notary. I wouldn't trust that. Like Eric said, please call in. And if you're still wanting to do a mail-in absentee, please go ahead and get it notarized, because those are the ones that we're fearing won't be counted. So please make sure and you pass that information on. It's important that we get this done. Like Eric said, they do have a lot of tricks. And as I've been saying for weeks, please go to vote.gov if you plan to vote in person on next Tuesday. It doesn't matter that you've been voting at the same place for 10 years. They love to pull the okie doke, especially in presidential locations. They will move your polling place without notice. So please confirm that your polling place has not changed, so you won't be surprised on election day. And then going back to the last announcement, If you're returning by mail, this must be postmarked by next Monday, November the 2nd, and it has to be received by Tuesday, November the 3rd by 12 noon. So please adhere to all of these announcements, and let's just continue to, I think I saw Dr. King post this, Bernice King. Let's continue to be strategic in our conversations, celebrate, because as we've all said tonight, our victories go beyond this. There's still work to be done. Continue to educate. So as always, I want to thank each of you for keeping the faith, and I want to thank you for tuning into Perspective. And how I'm going to close out this show tonight, I couldn't think of any other way. I'm sure many of you saw it, but I'm going to play another one many of you have not seen. My 93-year-old cousin, Martha Ophelia Tucker, who is a resident in Titusville, she has received a lot of local and state recognition because she has served as a poll worker for 57 years. This will be her last election working the poll, but she promises as long as she still has breath in her body, she's going to continue to vote and encourage others to vote. So me closing out with this video and me opening up with the 94-year-old female, we have no excuses not to vote. If the Ms. Mildred at the beginning, if she could drive over 300 miles to vote, and my cousin could keep doing this for 57 years and still be excited about voting, we have no excuses. So we've got to continue to educate and keep the work and do the work that needs to be done. So as always, keep the faith. Thanks to my guests for being on, and I will see you next Monday. And now we will conclude with this video.
My name is Martha May Ophelia Moon Tucker. Tucker is my married name, and I'm 93 years old. I wanted to get a better living, I thought. I always wanted to vote. I wanted to feel free until they had to split it up into precincts and districts. Well, I didn't even know nothing about being no poll watcher. I didn't know anything about it. I went under J. Arthur Jordan, which was, he was elected the chief inspector. And working with him with the scouts, he asked me to become his assistant. Oh, it was rough. We had to write names with a pencil. And at the end of the election, if our books didn't tally with the clerk's book, I had to erase and put the name where the voters had put the names on the wrong line. I had to make those lines tally with the clerk's book. And sometimes, most of the time, no, all of the time, when I got through with those books, it would be sometime 3:30 in the morning. Whoever was running for office, they had already been announced, you know. And so those votes never got counted. Good thing to me is that people have understood the meaning of voting, and they have came out and voted. I've had some hard knocks, but I just kept pushing them. I just kept pushing. That was my dream, right there. That I would live long enough to see one black president. And I've done that. I was on cloud 9. Tears of joy. I have pushed all these young college students, all these little 16-year-olds. I have encouraged them to come out and vote, and I didn't have no problem with that because they came out and voted. Some that was in college, they came home just to vote because I pushed them. Oh, it just means that I've done my duty. They need to vote because they need their right. They need a voice. Let that voice be heard. I want to see somebody to get in there that's going to do what's right.
I am Angela Strozier. I am her oldest grandchild. Well, under the influence of my grandmother, there are 4 generations of black women voters. I am the 3rd. My grandmother has a large influence, not just in the Titusville community, but in Birmingham City as well. There is probably no one in the city that has not heard and or seen Miss Martha Tucker.
Oh, yeah, everybody know me. Keep voting. Don't stop. Don't let nobody tell you what you can or cannot do. Speak for yourself. Vote. That's your voice.